Wait, just wait a minute. So the same people who act like they don't need black Americans, the same people who pretend that black influence doesn't exist, are now turning around and asking a black woman to step in when things start getting complicated. Now that right there should make everybody to pause for a second, because if the influence was never real, why do people keep going back to it when the pressure gets high? Welcome back to Chat with Faith. Credit goes to the original creators for every single clip used in this episode. And for disclaimers, this video is for educational purposes only and not intended to hate or discriminate against anyone. And to every single one of you liking, commenting, sharing, and dropping super thanks, I really appreciate you. I do not take your support for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. All right, with that being said, let's roll the clip.
Breaking news. I couldn't wait to share this story with you. Donald Trump is calling on a black woman to help him get out of the mess he's created in Iran. That's right. Donald Trump, the man who has attacked every black person with expertise in his administration, who's taken rank away from black generals, saying they only achieve their rank by DEI. The same man who took black history books from the military libraries. Well, today, a CNN reporter saw Condoleezza Rice quietly entering the White House. If you're not old enough to remember, Condoleezza Rice was the national security advisor during the period of 9/11, the Iraq War, under George W. Bush. Now, she's not a Fox News host. She's not a social media influencer like most of the people in Trump's cabinet. She happens to have a PhD in political science and is considered a brilliant person when it comes to the understanding of foreign affairs and geopolitics. So all of Trump's influencers are not very helpful in this situation. So it turns out that he needed to connect to a black person with expertise, which just seemed to me the ultimate irony for all he's done to try to discredit people. And for those of you who might be stumbling on this video, who think the war is going well in Iran, please take a look at another video I posted today. Colin Powell's chief of staff gives an eye-opening assessment of what the mainstream media or any media in the United States is not telling us. I think you'll be surprised. That's the video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.
Guess who was just pictured walking into the White House? You won't believe this. Condoleezza Rice, George W. Bush's national security advisor during the 2003 Iraq War. Now, this is a big deal because the Trump administration is trying to put on this brave face that, oh, everything's great. We don't care that Russia's helping Iran target us. We don't care about the billions of dollars of irreplaceable radars, having lost 4 and we only have 10 in the world. On and on and on. The global economic catastrophe that's just hanging over our heads any second to drop. And they're bringing in someone who Trump typically would attack. Somebody's like a neocon, the old establishment, blah, 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 rhino for sure. This is how you know things aren't going well. They're worried. They're concerned. Don't listen to the ego and the bravado that comes out of their mouths. Just look at the facts on the ground.
Today, we're going to be talking about the conversation surrounding Trump and the ongoing tension between Iran and Israel, and why some people are saying a black woman is now being brought into the discussion. Because for years, the narrative has been that black Americans don't have influence, don't have power, and don't have intellectual leadership on global stage. But somehow, the pressure gets real when things start getting complicated. Now the door suddenly opens, and that's why I always say this. You can pretend if you want, you can act like certain contributions don't exist, but the reality is there are entire industries, culture, and global trends that came from Black American creativity and knowledge. Look at the culture, look at the food, look at the music. Genres like jazz and blues didn't just influence America, they shaped music across the entire world. And yet, time and time again, we see the same pattern.
Ooh. Who's that lady, y'all? Y'all know who that lady is? I know some of you old heads know who that is, but you young heads, that's Condoleezza Rice with Trump. They didn't call in Condoleezza Rice, y'all, into this situation. They got themselves in a little situation. And they done looked around the White House and they realized there's not one competent person. in that White House. And they know they're in a situation with this whole Iran thing. So that was a Mayday call. They called in Condoleezza Rice from the Bush administration, an extremely competent, extremely intelligent black lady. I'm glad they called in some competence, but I'm afraid it was a Mayday call. So I'm afraid by this. Why did they have to call in Condoleezza Rice? I mean, we all know there's not one competent person in that White House. So I'm glad that they know that they needed somebody with some brains in there. But I'm also afraid that this was a Mayday call. Condoleezza Rice was seen at the White House at the end of last week, y'all, because of this Iran situation. They know they're in some trouble. They might be trying to project some damn confidence in front of our faces, but there's a reason why they called in Condoleezza Rice. Watch this space.
I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending. I'm not your problem anymore. So who am I?
Oh, hey, you guys. Guess what happened? Oh, you won't believe it. Trump had to call in the cavalry. He called in the cavalry. Guess who showed up at the White House? He walked up to her, shook her hand, rubbed her on the shoulder, and he escorted her back to his office. Condoleezza Rice. Oh my God, Miss Condoleezza, the expert on Russia and the Middle East. She was Bush's, y'all remember back in I think 2009, she was Bush's national security advisor. She know her shit. So I guess this war that Trump has started is not going the way he expected it to go. Guess who he called in? Yeah, he had to call in the GOAT. He called in Condoleezza to help him out. I know he's getting advice. I know he's trying to figure out how to fix this shit, how to get it right, what to do, because he don't have nobody, not one person that can get this right. None of the people that work for him that are in his, they not experts in none of this shit. They barely got their degrees. Don't know shit about shit. But he gave her a beautiful escort into his office. Let's see what she has to say, or what she's gonna do, or how much she needs to dig him out of this shit. But I was so glad to see her, and she looked good. I hate that she got to be here, because she's supposed to be chilling on the beach somewhere, enjoying her life, not doing this bullshit. But if anybody can do it, if anybody can get some intel, if anybody can advise to be on some intel, it would be her.
Okay, we need to rally the troops, and we need to get a hold of Condoleezza Rice and get Condoleezza Rice to run against Donald Trump in the midterms. It's not too late. We need to get Condoleezza Rice and call her up, say, yo, Connie, come and run against Donald Trump. We need you, girl. We need you bad. And we could all throw money behind her and get her going. You know, we could get her in there. Condoleezza Rice would be an awesome president. What do you think? I think it's a great idea. God loves you. I love you.
Hey, Condi. Yeah, Condoleezza. Why are you going to the White House? What are you doing? Is it a fundraiser? Are you there to smell his farts? What's the deal, girl? Why are you there? The architect of the Iraq War. What's going on, girl? You going scorched earth? Well, we're about to. We are so about to. $2 billion worth of military assets lost in 3 or 4 days. That's pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Y'all were not prepared for this because your ego got in the way. Because poor planning is how you plan. You don't actually look at all options. You don't look at all outcomes. You just simply run. Like y'all did to the polls for cheaper eggs, lower gas prices, and no war. And here we are. China's aligning with Iran, Russia's aligning with Iran. Kiss your children goodbye. Good day.
Colin Powell is dead. So is Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld. The only two people that are still alive that had anything to do directly with the war in Iraq are George W. Bush and Condoleezza Rice. Recently, Condoleezza Rice was seen at the White House, and Trump has referenced her personally. Condoleezza Rice is a powerhouse as far as foreign policy goes. In the 1980s, she was a nuclear strategist and a foreign relations strategist as well. She speaks fluent Russian, and in addition to that, she has direct involvement in both North Korea and Iran. Also, Condoleezza Rice knows what it's like to wage war on two fronts, being in the Afghan war and the Iraq war, especially recently with Trump's statements towards Cuba. The Trump administration obviously doesn't know what they're doing, and they don't have a long-term strategy for Iran. It also means that as Americans, we could probably prepare to go into Iran, since they are calling in literally the only person that could give them guidance on a long-term war. Are you scared yet? I am.
I remember very vividly the run up to the Iraq War. I remember the Bush administration's fear mongering about the supposed threat of weapons of mass destruction from Saddam's Iraq. I remember Condoleezza Rice saying that we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud.
There will always be some uncertainty about how quickly he can acquire a nuclear weapon, but we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud.
I remember Colin Powell going to the United Nations and saying, look, we have definitive evidence that Saddam Hussein is producing a nuclear weapon.
Indeed, the facts and Iraq's behavior show that Saddam Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Yellow cake and everything.
I got some yellow cake right here. Look, you see, you believe this shit now?
Don't drop that shit.
You know I know what to do with it. So I got it wrapped up in this special CIA napkin.
Don't drop that shit. Yeah.
You know, hope I don't drop this shit.
Pray to God you don't drop that shit.
And one thing I very much remember is how congressional Democrats at the time were terrified of being on the wrong side of the war. There was quite a bit of Democratic opposition to the first Gulf War back in 1990 and 1991, and Democrats got burned bad. So for this second Gulf War, and in this atmosphere where any kind of criticism of the Bush administration was enough to get you labeled a traitor to the United States, or objectively pro-terrorist, or some other nonsense such as that, so many congressional Democrats decided to take the path of absolute least resistance and support authorization for the use of military force in Iraq. Bush was just too popular. The public was just too much on his side. And it was a real act of courage at the time to oppose that war, to oppose the run-up to war, and to cast a ballot against the military force. Now, fast forward to the present, fast forward, 24 years, and another Republican president is trying to go to war in another Middle Eastern country, this time Iran, part of an axis of evil, and that president's already gone to war, already commenced the attack. There was no authorization for the use of military force. There was no run-up to war. There was no attempt to persuade the public. There's just a almost surprise attack on a Saturday morning that has now embroiled the United States in a conflict which may become a regional war and has already promised to do real damage to the global and American economy, to say nothing of the thousands of Iranians who have been killed in the conflict thus far. The manner in which the war is taking place, the public's general war weariness, has meant that this is already a strikingly unpopular conflict, with public support almost coming exclusively from Republican voters. Republicans have the majority in Congress, and although they have not passed any kind of authorization for military force, they do want to continue funding the conflict. They've already rejected an attempt to invoke the War Powers Act, and what's coming up is a bill to continue funding the conflict. The administration has asked for another $50 billion. I'll say here that last year, the Trump administration passed a piece of legislation, the One Beautiful Bill Act, crafted by congressional Republicans, opposed by all Democrats, that slashed public health insurance benefits and Medicaid, slashed the food assistance, slashed all kinds of programs for lower income people in order to funnel money to the wealthiest Americans. Now, that same administration is coming to Congress hat in hand for more money to prosecute what is an illegal war, what is an unpopular war, and what is an immoral war. And Democrats, not sure if they're going to support the funding bill. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has not committed to whether he is going to push Democrats to oppose this new funding bill. And Chuck Schumer in the Senate has not committed to whether or not Democrats are going to try to block the funding bill in the Senate. I'm not often into giving political advice, but this is a place where I think that political advice is incredibly obvious. Incredibly obvious. And that is, you oppose the funding. This is not 2002. This is not 2003. This is not a case where the public is on board for a war. This is not a case where the administration has been able to successfully cultivate an atmosphere where opposition to its plans is treated as opposition to the country itself. No, the public doesn't like this war. This war is fracturing the Republican coalition. Not only is there no real political cost in opposing it, but there's quite likely a great political benefit in opposing it, in demonstrating to the public, as the Democratic Party, that you really do mean to curb and restrain and shackle this administration. It's not for nothing that Republican lawmakers themselves are trying to avoid even calling it a war. They understand how unpopular this is, and they're trying to work around it.
We are not at war. We have no intention of being at war.
And while some Democrats with an acute case of Congress brain might think that there is some value in strategic ambiguity here and not quite saying what you want to do, I think that's wrong. It's difficult to get messages to the public. It's difficult to get those messages to stick. And so if you want to get a message to stick, you have to say it often. You have to repeat it all the time. This is what Mamdani grasped correctly. This is what Trump grasped correctly in his first run for the White House. Build the wall. A simple slogan, easy to grasp. And Democrats have an easy slogan. End the war. It's very simple. Vote for us, and we'll end this war. And for now, at the very least, we'll oppose any funding that puts additional Americans in danger. It's simple. Now, obviously, there are some Democrats in Congress who are probably in favor of this conflict, but most actually aren't. When you look at the votes taken thus far, most Democrats oppose this. Most Democratic voters oppose this. This isn't the case of a party that is secretly in favor of the conflict. What it is a party that is deeply risk averse, deeply afraid of causing controversy, deeply afraid of instigating political conflict. It is a mindset that hasn't quite grasped that the currency of the realm in this era is actually the ability to generate political conflict, the ability to generate controversy, the ability to make a splash and then take command of the narrative having made that splash. So yeah, the smart thing to do, the obvious thing to do, is not just to oppose the war, but to oppose the funding. Let the administration have to defend its conduct. I can't think of a better political place for Democrats to be than forcing the White House's hand on its unpopular war.
So a black woman has to go to the White House to tell these white men who think they know everything how to do things. And that black woman is Condoleezza Rice. Now, yeah, a lot of people don't too care for her back when she was in office, but she knows her shit. Y'all don't want black women to run anything, be above anybody other than themselves, but yet y'all still need their help. They still need their help. And some people are saying, why did she even go there? Why is she go? Because she's not emotional and petty like these white men that's in office. But I bet you they won't call her any kind of names. Why? Because they need her, not her need them. Yeah. You still need a black woman at the end of the day.
Let's talk about one of the most unstoppable black women in history, Condoleezza Rice. You know her as the first black woman to serve as U.S. Secretary of State, but here's what you don't know. Condoleezza grew up in Birmingham, Alabama during the height of segregation. Her parents, both educators, believed education was the ultimate weapon against oppression. Her name? It's Italian for with sweetness, but don't let that fool you. This woman is fierce. Here's a fun fact. Condoleezza dreamed of being a concert pianist, and by the age of 3, she was mastering Mozart. Though she didn't pursue music professionally, she still jams out with the likes of Yo-Yo Ma. Yes, that Yo-Yo Ma. Rice is also a diehard football fan and became a competitive figure skater as a teen. Talk about multitasking. Oh, and she's also a member of Augusta National Golf Club, the first black woman to join. Her career in politics, legendary. She once said, "The most important thing you can do is to be yourself." People may want you to be something else, but you have to be you. Condoleezza Rice isn't just a trailblazer. She's a reminder that resilience and versatility can shatter ceilings. Who should we highlight next? Drop your suggestions in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and follow for more inspiring stories of unstoppable Black women.
The idea comes from one place, but the credit somehow ends up somewhere else. And that's the part people are starting to notice. Because if someone behind the scene brings the strategy, the insight, and the solution, when the camera turns on, suddenly the headline becomes I did it. And the person who actually contributed the idea, they disappear from the story. So when I see the situation unfolding involving Trump and the discussion around the tension between Iran and Israel, I had to pause for a second because it raises a bigger question. Who is really influencing the conversation behind the scene? And more importantly, who ends up getting the credit when it's all said and done? Because if that's really the case, it raises a bigger conversation about influence, recognition, and who actually gets credit when the camera starts rolling. Situations like this always make people wonder what is actually happening behind the scene. When you start hearing about conversation connected to the White House and discussions surrounding tensions between Iran and Israel, naturally people are going to start paying attention. And when those discussions are somehow connected to the figure like Trump, the curiosity becomes even bigger. Because history has shown us something very important. Most of the biggest decisions that shaped global events don't always happen in front of the camera. A lot of real conversations happen quietly behind the closed doors. Sometimes the people contributing ideas and perspective are not the ones we see standing at the podium or making the announcement. And that's why moments like this create so much discussion online. People want to understand why certain individuals are suddenly part of the conversation. They want to know what role they are expected to play, and they also want to know what the outcome of this conversation could be. Right now, not every details have been made clear. A lot of information is still unfolding, and many of those discussions are still happening privately. But one thing is certain, whenever global tensions are involved, especially when it comes to countries like Iran and Israel, the entire world ends up watching very closely. So it will definitely be interesting to see how this situation develops and what information eventually comes out in the coming days or weeks. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think about everything you've watched? Why do you think this woman was brought into the conversation? And do you think moments like this reveal something bigger about how influence works behind the scenes? Go ahead and drop your thoughts down in the comment section below because I always enjoy reading what you guys have to say. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate every single one of you who takes time to support this channel. If you really enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share because it really helps the channel to grow and helps more people to join the conversation. And if you're new here and you enjoy commentary like this, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss further uploads. See you in my next video.